I am now joined by Chris Plank from a lot of things. 94.7, The Ref in Oklahoma City and Norman, Sirius XM, Fox Sports Radio, Sooner Sports TV in Norman. Anything else I'm missing, Chris? A lot of things.
I live on Twitter, so I'd Plank Show on Twitter. But now beyond that, I just try to stay as busy as I can, man. And I'm pumped to be talking some Sooner sports with you guys today.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Tulsa radio legend Chris Plank.
Hey, we're still on in Tulsa.
That's right.
Our 94.7 signal, one of the cool things is when iHeart, who I used to work for, when iHeart made the decision to put us on 94.7, they also put us back on my old station in 1430 The Buzz. So it's been kind of cool to hear from people in Tulsa, a lot of great friends and great memories. So it's been a fun shift in the radio world. When honestly, dude, when I moved down here, I wasn't going to do sports talk radio anymore. I was just going to be the Sooner sideline guy and whatever they needed me to be. But my wife decided she wanted a new car, and I had another kid. So we ended up getting a radio job. That's been great. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
That's awesome. Some people might recognize you as the voice of Oklahoma softball, the best team in the country right now. And they are a wagon. They are undefeated. You see them every single day. I have tons of stats written down, but just from your perspective, what's most impressive about this team?
How about let's put it in two phases and maybe even a third. Well, what's most impressive is just Patty Gasso. She continues to find these incredible athletes, and they are so talented, and she gets the most out of them. So I'd say Patty Gasso and her staff is what impresses me, because you've seen teams get good players and it just doesn't click. And she's made it click for, 28 years now. So let's start there. But with this team in particular, they're probably a 2, maybe a 3-loss team if they had the pitching they had last year at this time. Probably lose to Utah. They might drop a game to UAB, and they probably lose that Sunday game to Baylor. But this year with Hope Troutwine and what Jordy Ball has brought, it's just they're on a completely other level at this point of the season pitching-wise than where they were last year. Now, they don't win a World Series without G. Juarez last year. But I think if you talk to G, she would even tell you, hey, I was a much different pitcher in May and June than I ended up being in March and April. So I think the thing that stands out to me is how improved the pitching staff is this year. And just, they always find a way offensively. They were dreadful against Baylor. They had one hit going into the 7th, and, a 2-out bloop, another bloop, and then a blast in its ball game. So they just eventually find a way. But I think you can't tell this story of 2022 so far without really getting carried away with how good the pitching has been.
For people who don't get to watch them super regularly, you look at the stats and you see they're 32-0 and they have 26 wins by run rule. You look at them on paper, and a lot of people in the OU community are saying this could be not only the best OU softball team ever, but the best OU team out of any sport that they've had. Is that fair assumption?
Yeah, I think so. Now you got to remember, there's some old school peeps that would, look back at some of the Bud Wilkinson football teams. There would be, some that say that even though they didn't win a championship, that 88 team that Billy had, or 84, that the year they got beat by Kansas, was something pretty special. But with the way that national championship baseball team with Russ and Rich Hills and those guys was fantastic in AT. But this has a chance. Now, here's the problem. Is everyone in college softball sees that.
Yeah.
So you're not getting anyone. You're getting every single team's best shot. They're going to get, as we tape this, I'm getting ready to prepare for a Tulsa game tomorrow night. Tulsa's not a very good team this year, but I'll guarantee you that, even if it's just for a couple of innings, but you're going to get the best game that their starting pitcher is going to throw, because she's going to be dialed in. We're going to Tech this weekend. We're going to get the best, because everyone wants to prove themselves against Oklahoma. So, yeah, That's a great conversation. I think that we could have hopefully in June after they raise a championship trophy. I know the other side of that is there's some that say, well, they need to lose a game somewhere. Okay. Well, I mean, they lost all of two during the regular season last year, and they got better because of it. But this team has had two near losses that I think it really learned from, and that was the Tennessee game and then the Baylor game. Yeah, I know Utah was a close game. I know UAB was a close game, but I never thought they were going to lose those games, right? They really had things dialed in pitching wise. I think that, seeing those two games that could have been losses and how they won them, all right, I think they learned a lot from that. So it's I hope, Mason, going to be a major conversation piece in June for your podcast and for my radio show when we're asking, is this the greatest Oklahoma athletic team we've ever seen? Because the talent is there.
We're in the crux of conference play right now. What team, if any, do you think gives Oklahoma the toughest series, toughest game, or have they already played them?
Yeah, no, it's going to be Oklahoma State and maybe Texas. The Big 12 has been somewhat hard to figure out this year because Texas was really playing good ball. I mean, they were really playing good ball. And then Iowa State went into Austin and nearly swept them. Then Texas ended up sweeping the series, but I mean, Iowa State played great, and Iowa State hadn't necessarily been all that good this season. So now you wonder, all right, what do you expect from Texas, who had shut down LSU just a couple of weeks ago and then is barely skimming by Iowa State? So I don't know what to make of Texas, and we're going there next week. They get great crowds. They have sellout crowds, and they're a passionate fan base. But, Oklahoma, since I started calling games in 2016, hasn't lost to Texas, which is wild to think about. And they have Mike White as their coach. The team in the Big 12, there's three teams in the Big 12 that since I started doing games in 2016 that Oklahoma has lost to. It's Baylor, Kansas, and Oklahoma State. And I think Oklahoma State, of the teams left on their schedule, does pose the biggest threat. Now, Oklahoma State's got a pitcher in Miranda Ellis that Oklahoma has hit hard historically, and she's on her third school. She started at Oregon, then she went to Texas, and now she's at Oklahoma State, and she took a year off last year. So she's playing with her COVID year. Cheyenne Roller is a very talented player that Oklahoma State has that I like a lot. So Kenny Gajewski got that win, but then ended up losing 3 to Oklahoma. So I would say, even though it's home, Oklahoma State and Kelly Maxwell, another really talented pitcher they have, would be the team that would concern me a little bit. But, you're going to get when you go to North Texas, you're going to get a challenge. When you play Tulsa, you're going to get a challenge. A lot of people are keeping an eye on those midweek series as a place where Tulsa could get got. But I think it's going to be in Big 12 play if someone gets it. And I think either, in Austin, hey, the 2014 team lost a game in Lawrence to Kansas, right? So you just never know, catching a pitcher on the right day, what could happen. But I would say it's either Texas or OSU is my big concern.
Last thing for softball, and then we can move on to something else. But you were in Hawaii when with Jocelyn Alo with that entire record-breaking performance. What was it like just to be in Hawaii with Jocelyn, surrounded by friends and family? What was that whole experience like?
Yeah, it was really cool. It's one of the neatest things I've ever done in my career. And in fact, I mean, it's probably the coolest thing I've ever been a part of. And it was not just her breaking the record or getting to call history. It was everything that went into it, right? There was the trip to her grade school to see in Halua where she had grown up, to hear and meet her whole family, right? Not just seeing dad and mom and her sisters and her grandma, but her whole family and her extended family, and to see how beloved she was on the island in Honolulu. It was really, really cool to see and be a part of. I don't know if I'll ever be a part of something like that again. I don't see anyone breaking this record, which is still growing and is now at 104 that she's hit. So everything about that was really neat. It kind of sucked because Kinsey Hansen got hurt, but the good news is that, she's healing, and Lindsey Elam's been on fire since taking over. But that was the only downfall from that trip, is Kinsey getting dinged up. Outside of that, it was amazing. They every second of that trip was something that I'm going to cherish for the rest of my life. And very little of it has to do with anything that happened on the field. And there was a record that was broken. And, you have your play-by-play on Sports Center, but none of that
Yeah.
was what that trip was about. It was about Jossie and her family and just seeing the kind of people that they are. It was really cool.
I'm sure a bunch of people have told you crushed the call, by the way.
Thanks,
You may
dude. I
not give yourself
appreciate
enough
that.
credit, but you crushed the call. It was
We
great.
had there was a kind of a think group of
I was about to
us.
say, do you think that out beforehand?
Yeah, there was a couple of us. Whitley Simmons, who was the video coordinator for the Sooners, Rayleigh Pogue, who is a player that is now, I don't want to say retired, but she's working with the team this year. And Patrick Dunn and myself had always just kind of, and Toby Rowland, that Sunday, I'm not going to lie to you, dude. The Sunday morning when we woke up in Houston, I hadn't even thought about it. Right. And this is going back before the Hawaii trip. And a Sunday morning, I called Toby. I'm like, dude, this could happen today. What should I do? And he talked me through a few things. And yeah, it's just, I came to a conclusion that the only thing I wanted to have in my mind was I wanted to say her full name. And I wanted to say Jocelyn Aloha Pumihana Alo. And I hadn't done it hardly at all during her career. So I had written that down on a Microsoft Word document, and that was about it. And I'd hoped that she she would hit one out of the park, and she absolutely did. I mean, she hit a moonshot for number 96. So it was great, man. I appreciate that. It means a lot, but there was a lot of people that helped make that possible.
That's awesome. So moving on to the Oklahoma football team, in the middle of spring practice right now, you're obviously sideline reporter, which you do a great job along with Gabe during those football games. It's awesome to hear you guys. Seeing this team under a new coaching staff, seeing them in spring ball, I don't know how much you've gotten to see because you're in the middle of softball season, but I know you do those interviews with the assistant coaches and stuff like that. What has that been like with this new Brent Venables era in the first few months of it?
Yeah, it's kind of funny that you mentioned that because literally while we've been talking, I've been watching the Dylan Gabriel touchdown pass on loop that they just put on Instagram.
Yeah.
Literally as we started watching, you're like, oh, what a catch! Look at this!
Great catch.
I had someone text my radio show this morning and they said it, and I think it's true. I feel like I get more fired up with every single one of the new assistants I hear from. It started with Jeff Levy. It moved on to Ted Roof, and then obviously Todd Bates getting in the mix. Miguel Chavis, who was, I guess maybe it started with Miguel Chavis as the first hire. Jay Valai, Brandon Hall. You hear from all these new guys, and they're just, man, they fire you up. And if the product, if their passion is any indication of what this product is going to be like, Mason, I'm here for it. And I'm in that group that, I'm not. I say this slowly and quickly, but I'm not somebody who is on the Tebow bandwagon or that wants to sit here and hate, because I think Oklahoma's in a better place.
Yeah.
And I loved all those dudes that were here, that were a part of that staff and the recruiting side of things. But, I look now and, let's go. It's a different level that you're seeing. It is and you've heard the term holistic approach a lot, right? It is a holistic approach. It's everything. It's giving these dudes an opportunity to have someone to talk to that's not their coach. And I think that's really big. So I love it, man. I can't say enough about it. I was listening to Jay Valai on my way driving home to sit and talk with you, and you close your eyes and Jay Valai sounds like Alex Grinch, but then you listen to him and what he's saying about the corners, you realize this is what this group needed, from Woody Washington to DJ Graham to, let's see if a Joshua Eaton can be a part of it, or a Kendall Dennis, and obviously the transfers who have come in. Walker is someone that he talked about extensively. In fact, I think it was the first question out of the gate yesterday. So I love everything about this staff that has come in. I love the approach. When you have a head coach that can give you a 20-minute opening statement, that's my kind of guy.
Yeah.
So I don't know how fans, even the most disappointed, hurt, bent fans from what happened, cannot feel like they got a new lease on life since Brent Venables came in here and has just reimagined the whole program. It's incredible.
You're a guy who has a unique perspective because you are involved in the media side, but you're also ingrained in the program, as well as with alumni like Gabe Eichert, like Teddy Lehman. Those alumni that we hear from seem to be very, very excited about their access and their ability to be a part of the program
Yes.
that they didn't used to have. And again, not hating on the former staff or anything like that, but that's got to count for something, right? Like it's got to count for something to have the alumni base that Oklahoma has, and to have these guys coming back and tweeting on Twitter and so excited about it.
It's massive. It really is. And it's really cool to me because the people that you're seeing also includes people from the last 4 to 5 years that are really excited about this, from a Kyler Murray to a Baker Mayfield. And of course, they're getting a statue unveiled. So that's part of it eventually for Kyler, the spring game for Baker. But that's really cool to me. Gabe has said it many times, and I can attest to it as well from friends and people I used to work with. You started hearing from people that you hadn't heard from in years whenever Brent Venables got hired and Lincoln Riley left, and that whole, kind of 9-8 days that took place in November. And you could sense almost a resurgence of energy in that. Hey, not that Lincoln was unwelcoming, not that there were any doors that were shut, but just a true, hey, welcome back. Let's go. And, Teddy's told the story many times. He would sit in Brent Venables' office and watch tape of guys and just kind of learn. Now you have that back, and you have so many people that Oklahoma football and Oklahoma as a program means so much to them that are a part of this program now. The Josh Normans, the Curtis Laughlins of the world, the Caleb Kellys of the world. I mean, OU football means something to them. They just hired Matt Wells as a quality control coach or an analyst, whatever that term is. Matt went to games with his grandpa when he was a kid. He's a Sallisaw guy. I mean, you've got dudes, even though Matt's going to be a head coach again someday, you've got guys here where Oklahoma Sooner football means something to them. And then in that, they have the relationships that they don't want to push aside with these alums and these former players. They want to bring them in. They want them to be a part of it. And I think that's really one of the low key, but because so many of the former players are involved in the media, low key, but very much talked about quite a bit. True awesome things that Brent Venables has done.
The last thing I can get you out of here on this. You've had a long career, and I'm not trying to age you. You've had a long career.
I'm 46. I turned 47 in 2 weeks. It's fine. You can say it.
You look fantastic.
Thanks,
you've had a long career. You started at OU full time as my last year at OU as a student, and I just kind of want to know during your time at Oklahoma, is there like a moment besides the Jocelyn Alo moment, because we just talked about it, that kind of sticks out from covering games or even games you've worked?
Yeah, dude. I mean, every single home football game is special. I think my first year doing sidelines was 11, and then I moved down here in 15. So every single home football game is special to me. Listen, dude, this is crazy, but you'll experience it someday. All the young whippersnappers on your podcast that listen will experience it someday. But as you get older, moments like just even a game day kind of become almost an emotional thing. And especially after COVID, right? Especially after COVID. So, and I'm not even being a smart aleck. If it's Ball State, if it's McNeese State or whomever it is, every single home game is a big deal to me for football. But I want to bring it back to softball.
Yeah.
And it again is just a general thing, but it's kind of every now and then I reflect on the path for softball and thinking about my first year in 2016 was first year we traveled softball to every single game. And Lauren Chamberlain, Georgia Casey, Shelby Penley, all these stars had just graduated and they came up short. They lost in the super regional. And 2016 was supposed to be this rebuild year with this group of young freshmen, Shea Knight and Sid Romero, Kaylee Clifton, among others. And they won a national championship. And, 17 was great. 21 was great. But I don't know if anything to me will ever be more special than 2016, because there were two freshmen that sat behind me on the bus all the time, Sid Romero and Fale Aviu. And we're great friends even to this day, right? Both are with the team this year. And every so often it's just, we joke about, 6-7 years ago, there you guys were. I remember I remember Sid getting emotional when we left Vegas because it was the first time that she had seen her parents since coming to Oklahoma and then had to leave them again. Just these little things. I remember Fale Aviu's brother jumping on the bus after a game to yell "I love you" to a player and coach laughing about it. I mean, just all these things that happened during that season are things that, just I'll never forget a moment of 2006. Now, some of the details you might say, no, that was that following week, wasn't next week, but 16 was just such a cool ride because it was so unexpected. And then 17 was you came with the expectations and then you had to grit and grind to still win it. So yeah, when you think of moments for me, in 2016, my first ever, time covering the Women's College World Series full length, and to be sitting in a booth with a police officer all night long because we didn't know if it was going to be delayed while we watched it rain and rain and rain, to 2 walk-offs versus Alabama, to Sid beating her sister and kind of ending her World Series run, to, just, I mean, everything about that year, dude, it is always going to have a really special place for me. And my daughter just started playing softball, which she doesn't now. So there was all these cool little connections for me personally that made that one of the coolest things I'd ever been a part of. And I love it, man. It's ended up becoming a passion of mine, right? I'm doing Westwood 1 games for college softball, for goodness sakes. I'm going to family reunions with, Coach Patty Gasso and her husband, Jim. And my better friends are the director of ops and Jackie Livingston and Jake Scroggins and Dane Summers. So it's become truly something that I never could have imagined. And it wouldn't be where it was, Mason, without 2016.
Yeah. The last thing, and I'll get you out of here on this, there's a lot of young listeners who may be listening right now trying to get into the sports media space like you are. What is your biggest piece of advice for a kid going through college right now, a kid in high school right now, trying to just figure out their way to make it into that business?
I think the key is there's no magic path. And I kind of learned this the hard way because I expected to be just snatched up when someone saw my tape and be hired by ESPN 2 years after graduation. I'm not going. And I wanted to do TV, and TV was really my passion. But I got a job in radio, fell in love with it, and the rest is history. But a lot of things. Number one is be willing to do everything. And so, for instance, if I hired you at my radio station, I would want you to learn to be more than a producer. I would want you to learn to be a talk show host, learn how to do production, learn how to set up remotes, which is very simple now, but just immerse yourself in everything. You went through Sooner Vision and you learned everything, right? Don't just say, I'm going to be an on-air talent, so I'm going to learn how to be the best on-air person I can be. Learn how to shoot, learn how to direct, learn how to TD, learn how to do all EV, learn about it all. I'm not saying you have to be experts, but at least know enough to where, hey, if things don't work on the air, I can go off the air. If things work off the air, which by the way, there's tons of opportunities for right now. I mean, there's tons of opportunities right now for directors and producers and graphics people. And so I just learn it all. And some get mad about that. It's like, well, doesn't that kind of make you a master of a few, but mediocre at many? Well, I think you find a groove, and that to me is where then you start fine tuning your craft. But in my world, that's a step up. That's as you go along. Hey, I learned how to do directing today, or I learned how to do this today, and I learned how to do this. Eventually you rise to the top. If it's where you get paid more, or if it's where you're better at, or if it's where you're more comfortable, or where you're having more fun, because all those things, hey, learn everything you can. I can't say it enough. I spent too much time as a 23, 24, 25-year-old making minimum wage as a board op, working for free on weekends just to get an opportunity. I spent too much time stressing. And I know there's no magic pill to fix that because I'm 46 and I still stress, right? I'm sitting here as we tape this and I got a radio show at 3:00 today. I'm stressing about it, but not in a bad way, in an excited way. But I'm also stressing is, oh gosh, if I don't do good on this show, will they have me do another show and I make my, whatever the payment is per show. So this piece of advice comes with the caveat that I'm not good at it and I'm trying to get better at it. But the other piece of advice that I like to give is remember you're doing what you've always wanted to do, right? So have fun. Because if you don't, you're going to drive yourself crazy. You're going to end up having gray hairs and you're going to end up biting all your fingernails off. And it's going to become a job and it's not going to be a career. Make sure that it becomes it maintains as your career. And it's something that you immerse yourself in every single day. Even if you're a grip at a football game, remember you're standing on the sidelines of a football game and your job is to pull cables. So that's hard for me. And then talk to everyone. Talk to everyone. If it's just interacting with them on Twitter, if it's DMing them for advice, if it's an email, whatever it might be, that's something that always helped me out because I worked in sports information and we didn't have Twitter and we didn't have Facebook and we barely had cell phones, but I would bug the hell out of people. And hey, do you need me? Can I do this? Can I help with that? I got an idea to do this. Don't be afraid to share your ideas. So this is a topic I'm very passionate about because I feel like in my world, I haven't done a good job in helping younger broadcasters as much as I want to, because there's not, I think, this thirst for knowledge. I think people have looked at it and said, well, I can have a bunch of crappy takes and I can end up, a tweet goes viral. And so there I am, I'm great. Or I can be a smart ass. But there's people that truly still care about doing it and doing it well. And I think that's who I'm excited about, for this next generation, not someone who's just going to throw a dumb tweet out there and everyone goes crazy about it, but have fun with it, man. Embrace it and be willing to do everything.
Perfect. Chris, thank you. No, it helped. I guarantee you, if you helped at least one person, it was worth it, Chris, I really, really thank you for taking the time and talking to us. We really appreciate it. And looking forward to the rest of the softball season. Go ahead and plug whatever show you want to. If you feel like it, go ahead.
Hey man, you've given me plenty of time. I appreciate it. Go give me a follow on Twitter at Plank Show and make sure you stay locked on to the Program Guy podcast because it's well worth your time, man. I appreciate you having me on, Mason.
Thank you so much, Chris. Appreciate it, man.